Joe Burrow last year, 10 games, right? The 10th game was the game in which he suffered the season-ending injury. It was at Washington, a field where terrible things happen to quarterbacks, quite frankly. But 5 of those games before that, Joe Burrow threw for 316, 312, 300, 313, 406. So he had 5 games where it was 300 yards or better, one of which was over 400. You remember that Cleveland game, 37-34 loss where he threw for north of 400. Not so much in the other games. Obviously, one of those was cut short. So 2,688 yards passing for Burrow in what amounts to a little more than half the season. And now we got 17 games. I'm curious how you feel about the props on him in terms of total yards passing.
Yeah, I mean, they should be as bad. I mean, especially if you look at the offensive line, right? I mean, this is you see that on your screen right now, Joe Burrow sitting at 4,200 yards. I mean, the offensive line, Jonah Williams is a really great pass blocker, but he's just horrible run blocker. But I mean, listen, he pass blocks really well, and actually is kind of the one bright spot on the offensive line for them. He's at 72nd out of 84 qualifiers as far as run blocking, though. So he does have his weaknesses. Like I said, they signed Riley Reif. He's going to come in. He's going to start instantly at right tackle. So he's an upgrade from what they had last year. And then they drafted a second rounder in that Jackson Carman, who's going to come in and play right guard. He played left tackle all through college at Clemson, but they don't need him to play. They don't need him to play tackle here. They're going to move him over to right guard. Left guard still up in the air. Who's actually going to play there? There's 3 different guys working at that, trying to win that starting job. The problem is all 3 of them are pretty average to mediocre players, so that's going to be a weakness on the line no matter what. So the line is probably not going to be that much better than what he had last year. Now, that said, he's got a year under his belt in the league. I'm sure there will be an emphasis on maybe getting the ball out of his hands a little bit quicker and not, sitting back there and holding the ball as much. I mean, I think if you look at that total, if you assume, let's not assume 17 games out of Burrow. Let's assume, 15 games out of Burrow. I still think that is an attainable number.
And the over is the plus money.
Yeah.
Right? The over is plus 110. The under is juiced at minus 134. If you look at the first part of that schedule, so pre-bye, you got some winnable football games.
Right.
Again, could they lose them too? Absolutely. But versus the Vikings, again, Vikings at home, at Bears, at Steelers, Thursday night home game against the Jaguars, a home game against the Packers, I guess Aaron Rodgers.
We don't know what the situation is going to be there.
At Lions, and then 2 weeks after that at Jets. So there are some games you can win, by the way, at the Raiders after the bye too. And so if we go to the markets where we have all 4 teams in the division at the AFC North, I'm curious what you said about Pro Football Focus there, about their Steelers projection, about their Bengals projection. The yes-no playoffs is interesting. What's a better bet to you? Obviously, you like the yes minus 200 on the Browns. We haven't gotten there yet. But between the Steelers and the Bengals, the yes to make the playoffs on the Steelers is plus 140, the no's minus 175. The yes on the Bengals is 5-1.
Yet projected at basically the same. So,
right.
I mean, obviously, if you were going to play that, you take the 5-1. I don't think either one will make the playoffs, obviously, but I mean, the better bet is certainly like fading the Steelers, in my opinion. Again, like, I think Ben's completely washed, and we'll talk about them.
Yeah.
We'll talk about them a little bit later. The defensive line, as we mentioned, like, this is going to be probably one of the bigger problems for this team, because so they lose Carl Lawson, as we mentioned. Trey Henderson comes in, but he's just not Carl Lawson. Carl Lawson's actually a superstar in this league. G.J. Reader only played 5 games for them last season, so he could provide at least a little bit of a bump for this team whenever he comes back. And, but as a whole, this team only had a 22.8% pressure rate. And we talk about how pressure is just so important with this being a passing league. It's not necessarily the sack numbers. Everyone wants to just spit out the sack numbers. So it's really like the pressure rate that makes all the difference here, because you want guys to get rid of it before they want to. You want guys to make bad decisions. You want guys to throw into coverage. And so that 22.8% pressure rate, that was 31st in the league, right? So, I mean, there was only one team worse than them. And now you've lost Carl Lawson. So it's like, have any chance to get any better? Probably not.
Probably not.
So probably not. And so you still are probably going to have a defensive line that's not getting much pressure in a passing league, in a division that's got the Browns that, look, for better or worse, Ben is going to try to throw it, a lot and whatever. And then, maybe, we see Lamar Jackson take a step. One of the things they do have, and this is, as you would imagine whenever you hear these names, is the receiving core. I mean, one of the top 10 receiving cores in the league. heading into 2021. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins on the outside, and then you have Tyler Boyd in the slot. Like that's a good trio right there. That is a really good trio.
As you know, I just want to point this out when I was talking about the yes for them to make the playoffs at 5-1. I could almost hear some people jeering, like, "Come on, the Bengals aren't making the playoffs."
Right.
Just want to say this before every sports season: there's always a team that no one has doing anything.
Yes.
That is at least in contention. We talked about it with the San Francisco Giants before the season. Can't tell you how many tweets I got. "Oh, you're full of it. It's not going to happen." Okay, well they were 8-1. Then I hope you played it. The Bengals, I'm not saying they're getting it. I don't have that same kind of conviction, but it's not an impossibility.
So every team, we saw this. All you have to do is look back to last season, but every single team, most teams, I think we think that the Bills have a pretty good situation going on there, but most teams are one injury to the quarterback away from being terrible.
Yeah.
Taking like a huge step down.
That's right.
And so any of these teams above them in this division, if any of those guys go down, could be terrible. So I mean, it's not crazy to think that something could happen to Lamar Jackson or something could happen to Baker Mayfield. And next thing you know, that the second place team in this division could be kind of nibbling at a wild card. That's not crazy to think.
LSU guy that you are, I'm impressed that you got through that whole segment without calling him Hall of Famer Joe Burrow. Well done.
Future Hall of Famer.
Future Hall of Famer.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
Hall of Famer.
Future Hall of Famer Joe Burrow.